everybody. I keep feeling like I need to make that intro longer, and maybe someday I actually will, but welcome. It's time for Comic Art Convo. We talk about a lot of wild subjects on this show, and we share our thoughts on some original art out of our collection and talk con stories. So you get just a little bit about everything, a bit of a comic book stew, if you will. So welcome those of you joining us. I'm sure the crowd will grow as we continue to go on, but let me bring in my co-host, the man known as Sequential Treasures. Give him a big hand. Here he is. Hey, James. Hello, you're on.
Nope.
That was anticlimactic.
Did anyone guess what I saw today?
Oh, you went and saw this today? I'm going tonight to watch this.
Yes, I saw Top Gun Maverick. It is everything people have said positively about it and more.
All right. Well, I'm going tonight. Finally going to see it, so I'm right behind you.
You do need to see it on a big screen.
Okay.
You need to see it on a big screen.
I am.
That's what people told me. That's what I had to say. All right, I got to jump in on this. I got to see it on the big screen. So I did. I'm so glad I did. In fact, it was so good. I'm thinking of seeing it again. And I haven't done that for a movie since Spider-Man 2.
My son's going with me. This is like, I think, his fourth time, maybe his fifth. He loves this movie. So
yes.
Go America.
It's not even America. It's just go good movies.
Well, yeah, exactly. Oh, if only we could get some of that in America.
Thank you, Tom Cruise. Thank you, Tom Cruise. In fact, I don't want to get too many spoilers on the film, but in the beginning of the film, right before it starts, there's a little message from Tom Cruise where he thanks you for coming to see the movie. And it's like, no, thank you, Tom Cruise, for doing a movie that is worth seeing. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not a big, huge Tom Cruise fan, but there are several of his movies that I do really, really like. And so despite the fact that I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan, I still will go and watch the movies if they're good. So like The Mummy, I didn't go watch. So
well, you see right there, the single season. There you go. Sequential Treasures, the single season, baby. I'm one of a kind.
All right, let's take a.
I got some stuff here to show today. I got some new graded comics in.
So, really?
Look at that look on his face. Look at
No, I know. I want to see that. I want to see that.
Right, well,
let's wait a second. Let's see who's in the chat, and then we'll jump right in and get to our TV shows. Leg Kick is here because Leg Kick is almost always here, and he was the first one in the gate, so that's great. Geek Avenger is here. Heidi Mealy is here. Happy Saturday, she says to us, and thank you so much. Killer Squid, Peyton Holden. Oh, Peyton. Show up tomorrow night because you're going to get cannonballed. Just letting you know ahead of time. Richie Dupe is here. Wiley Draws, True Grit Remake, only movie I watched twice in a theater. Why does my son do this to me? Whenever I'm on the air, he has to call me. And L.E. Munoz, Tom Cruise is the last Hollywood movie star. You might be right.
He is.
So let me bring up what we're doing today, by the way, is television shows that didn't last as long as we thought they should have. And the criteria was 2 seasons or less, correct?
Correct. But before we do, graded comics time. So I got this one in a few weeks ago.
Wait a minute. What?
Incredible Hulk 315 by John Byrne.
Yeah, 9.6. Look at that. Nice.
Because I'm an 80s child, Transformers #9.
Now, what's significance about that?
It's one of the earliest comics I ever read.
I see.
Or I think it's either the first or one of the very earliest works of artist Mike Manley. Also introduces this character, Circuit Breaker. And again, 9.6.
Look at that.
And now the biggie. This one I just got in on Wednesday.
All right.
Captain America 335. The first adventure of the John Walker, a.k.a. U.S. Agent Captain America.
Oh, is that?
Introduces the Watchdogs and
9.8. You can't do much better than that.
No. Gem Mint 10s are very hard to come by for some reason.
That's awesome. Awesome. Always love to see some graded comics.
I know they're all from the 80s, Aaron, so that's not your area. But like I said, I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up in the 80s. That to me that's the time. That's probably why I love Top Gun Maverick so much, because it felt just like an 80s movie.
Hey, I was still, I was in college in the 80s, so I did go enjoy Maverick on more than one occasion during the 80s when I was down and living in LA. So, but anyway, those are very cool pickups. Thank you for sharing. But let's roll on to the big picture stuff. Some television shows, James, that you're kind of reminiscing about and saying,
"Oh man, Geek Avenger, man! I swear, people come to this show so you'll cannonball them at the Sunday show." Geek Avenger, look at what he says there.
When Aaron was into comics, when Aaron was into comics, they were carved into stone. Here's the thing about Geek Avenger. As we're getting into your first selection here, I gave Geek Avenger. He came and saw me. Him and Squeaky came and saw me at the Washington State SummerCon this past weekend, and they brought me some gifts. And I said, "This will give you a free pass for you can insult me without getting cannonballed one time." And he just used it. So there you go, Geek Avenger. You just used your free pass.
Should have saved it for a really good one.
I know. He should have saved it for a rainy day, but he just threw it out there, and there's your pass. All right, James, tell us about this show.
Okay, so what we got here first is I started out with my very favorite short-lived show ever, Sledgehammer. Come on, David Raish. He was awesome in this. It was everything you'd want in an 80s hard action cop show with humor and action, and I just loved it. It's actually one of the few shows I could get together with my dad and watch it. I remember there's this one episode in the series where he goes undercover in like an Elvis school to be taught how to be like Elvis. And they get him up on stage and he's acting all inhibited because he's not he's not a performer. And then they start to laugh at him. And then one guy calls him a wussy, and that sets him off, and he starts jumping into it. He starts doing all the Elvis stuff. He does the Elvis kicks and stuff. And he kicks this one guy right in the face in the front. He kicks him in the face. And my father fell out laughing when he saw it, because my father was a huge Elvis fan. But man, yeah, the Sledgehammer, that was classic stuff. Alan Spencer is a satirical genius. He took on all the 80s tropes of cop movies and said, let's make fun of them and have fun with it. It was great stuff. It's my favorite short-lived series. Got lots of great people in it. The great Harrison Page is in there. That's our captain in the back there, the black guy.
You keep throwing out great. The great.
Yes, he is, because he is great. He's done a lot of great work. Oh my God. How could you, let's see here. What we got? We got actually his very first work. Did you know this? Harrison Page's first film was Vixen with the legendary, unappreciated genius Russ Meyer.
Oh, gosh. See, there you go.
Got him in again.
Now I know why you're saying this guy is the great, because he was in a Russ Meyer film.
That's right. He was in Russ Meyer's Vixen, his very first role.
Now,
in 1968.
Let's see. There was Vixens, and then there was Super Vixens, and then there was Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens, as I recall.
Yeah.
We're gonna see. Look at we had this discussion back when we did the show with the B movies. So here we go again, right down the old Russ Meyer road.
Well, yeah, he's done a lot of television work. He was on Kojak before this. He did Super Train, Hill Street Blues, Benson, Give Me a Break, T.J. Hooker. I mean, it's like what wasn't he on?
Apparently he just because someone's on a show a lot doesn't mean they're necessarily great. But
right here, this is one of the greatest moments ever in the show's history. In fact, David Raish has said everyone's favorite moments as he hears from them, the 3 moments he hears most, all come from the very pilot episode. One is this paper airplane. He throws it and it sticks in the captain's hair, and he's walking away with it stuck in his hair. The paper airplane. The I Heart Violence bumper sticker on his car, and then this. He shows up at a scene. You can see the cops in the background. They cordoned off the area because there's a sniper in the building. And there's a sniper. We can't get him out. He goes, don't worry, I'll take care of it. He walks back to his car. You see the I Heart Violence bumper sticker. He pulls out a bazooka, and he blasts the building, and then it implodes in on itself, and he comes walking back. I think I got him. It's so classic, and it's I love this show. How could you not love it? It's a cartoon brought to real life.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this show from the 80s. I don't know that I watched it regularly, but I probably caught an episode or two of it.
Well,
but as I remember, it was kind of
that's why it didn't last long, because you weren't watching it regularly.
Well, I guess not, but I guess it was kind of like a comedy Dirty Harry movie, right? Or television show, right?
Like a cop drama with satirical humor. Yes, that's with him playing a sort of Dirty Harry type character. Yes, but to the nth degree. Like, he never goes anywhere without his gun. He talks to his gun, and the thing about this is it was, like I said, only 2 seasons, and wait a minute,
this lasted 2 seasons.
2 seasons.
Wow.
And the thing is their biggest problem was their competition, because at the time slot they were in, they were up against Miami Vice.
Ouch.
Which is, that was like the phenomenon of the 80s. Everyone watched Miami Vice.
I watched Miami Vice. I watched Miami Vice pretty regularly, which explains why I wasn't watching Sledgehammer.
Exactly. See, and so what happened is there was an episode, I forget which one it is exactly, but there's one episode, he's in a bar and he's talking to like the bartender, and he goes to leave, and there's like a TV up on the wall, and he goes, now stay tuned for Miami Vice, and he pulled out his gun and he shoots out the TV, and that was Alan Spencer's little needle to them for always beating them out in the ratings. Just totally classic. And if I'm such a Sledgehammer fan, let me right here. I own the Sledgehammer comics Marvel did in 1988.
I don't even remember them doing that.
Both issues.
Ooh, Spider-Man crossover.
Spider-Man with a gun. Come on. How could you not love that? But
my gosh, that is classic.
2 issues and it was gone. Sledgehammer was awesome, and I pray to God, please, God, if you have any love for me at all, never let them remake this series. Never let them do a modern take. Please, no.
So what you're saying is this show lasted 2 seasons and Marvel's comic book lasted 2 issues.
Yes.
That's the record because it was DC had a comic called Brother Power the Geek back in 1968. Lasted 2 issues before it got canceled. So apparently there's no comic series that only lasted 1 issue before it got canceled. I'd at least get 2 out of them.
Yes, 2 issues of Sledgehammer. I guess because they got 2 seasons on the tube, so we'll give them 2 issues.
Sure, I remember Sledge being on late night TV in England. There you go, Richie Dupe, all the way from across the pond. That's pretty cool.
Sledgehammer, great series. Like I said, I just David Raish is awesome, and I couldn't find it. I looked for it earlier, but I couldn't find. I tried to find. I have a framed picture of David Raish as Sledgehammer that I'm going to get him to sign if I ever get him to meet him somewhere. I'm going to have him sign it, and of course, when he signs it, I'm going to have him sign it this exact way. To James, trust me, I know what I'm doing, because that was the character's catchphrase.
Right. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Oh my gosh. Okay, that was a pretty good pick. Now this next one, I had no clue this was ever even a show, which again maybe would explain why it only lasted 1 season. But I would have thought this might have lasted more than a season. But there you go, James.
Yes, the Blade, the series. Now again, this was not Wesley Snipes playing the role, which is what everyone knows. This was played by a guy named Sticky Fingers. That's his name. I think he's a rapper.
Okay, maybe that's why it failed. But anyway, go ahead.
But here's the thing. He actually did a good job in the role. It's not like he was horrible. You're like going cringe. It's actually pretty good. It's got all these political elements of vampire lore and vampire hierarchies and stuff. And he's trying to take down this one house of vampires, and he's got this woman that helps him out, and she's been turned, and she's trying to get turned back, and all this stuff that's going on, and she's like an infiltrator for him and stuff. It's a really great series. I thought it really played well to the films, and so but again, I guess the series just didn't last. We got 1 season and it was gone. It just didn't make it. It was only around in 2006. After the films, though, see, all 3 of the films had been out. The Blade trilogy had already come out, and then they did the series. Maybe that's why it didn't last. Maybe they would have done it during the course of the films. Maybe more people would have got into it. I don't know, but it was a really good series.
It was on Spike TV. That couldn't have helped. That wasn't exactly a big channel, as I recall.
It wasn't at the time. I mean, it got bigger because they eventually got bought out. But I mean, but yeah, at the time, I don't think they were quite that big.
So did this?
But that's why you got a show like this on a station like that, because they're willing to take the chance on something. And like I said, this is actually really well done. I mean, it's got lots of great stuff in it, and
was this an adult
lots
show?
Of great action sequences, and yeah, it was a wonderful series. I don't know why nobody fell into this series more. I mean, again, because like I said, Blade was the man at the time. It's like, really?
Now, was this an adult show, like with language and violence and stuff? Or
well, the violence for sure, language. I mean, there was no F-bombs or anything, but like maybe once in a while I might hear a little bit of curse words, but not heavy. I'd say it'd be like a hard PG, maybe a very light R, but because of the violence.
Right.
Yeah, see, there it is. Spike TV was hot for a minute, and then they were gone, and they were bought out by Paramount.
Look at that. Richie Dupe's mother dressed him and his brother as Crockett and Tubbs.
I think that's a form of child abuse now, isn't it?
It might be. Richie Dupe says Sticky Fingers created a whole new genre of hip hop. How about that?
I didn't know that. Like I said, I knew he was a rapper. I didn't know about the whole what he's done in his rap. I never listened to any of his raps. All I know him from is this and a couple other appearances on some shows he did later that I've seen him on. He's done a little bit of acting. And there it is. There he is right there as Blade. I mean, doesn't that, look cool? Doesn't that look like something almost like a shot from the movie?
If I had known this was actually a series, I probably would have watched it. But I didn't.
Well, I own it on DVD because I liked it so much, but I've heard that it's hard to find the DVD set on this now to get the whole the one season that was out there. It's hard to find them. They're like a treasure trove item if you find one. Like, wow, you found Blade the series on DVD.
Interesting.
So it's something you would have you'd have a little bit of a time trying to find one. And again, I'm sure if you found it, it probably wouldn't be too cheap either, considering.
Well, it's interesting. What's interesting about this is you would have thought if it was on Spike TV, which was, kind of a fledgling network, that I don't know what they would have expected for rating numbers. You would have thought they would have maybe pushed through even with low ratings, because I'm sure everything on Spike TV
I think probably what they were doing, they were banking on the success of the movies to bring people over to the series, and I guess it just didn't happen that way.
Yeah, I suppose, but I would think like a network like that would probably was pretty hard up for programming, might have given it a second season, given it another chance, but no, it was not to be.
Unfortunately.
Well, that's sad. I'm going to wipe the tears away, but let's take a look at your next one. And this is interesting because again,
this one actually hurt me when it got canceled because I loved it so much. I mean, like Sledgehammer is my favorite one from the past. This is my favorite one from current times. Tron Uprising. My God, this show is so good. It is so good. I don't know why they let it die. I don't know. Damn you, Disney, for multiple reasons, but this one especially. This was a great series. I mean, you had an all-star cast of voice acting. You had Elijah Wood as the main character, Beck. You had let's see here, Bruce Boxleitner came back as Tron. You had Mandy Moore, who was a character on here named Mara. You had Lance Hendrickson as Tesla, the bad guy of the piece. You had Paul Rubens as his lackey. I mean, you had Reginald Bell Johnson as Abel, another character on the show. I mean, you had a powerhouse of all these great, voice actors, and it's such sharp writing and the stories, and oh my God, I never thought I could care so much about a computer program. This is awesome. And then he killed it in one season. It's like,
that's really bizarre. If you look at a top 10 list or top 25 list of, one season shows that got canceled, this is in all the lists because everybody thought this was a good show.
This was an excellent series. I mean, and the thing is, again, probably because they put it on Disney XD, they should have put it on like ABC at like 8:30 at night on prime time, and it would have blown up. People would have loved this, but no, they said let's stick it on this little smaller channel of ours, and it just died there. And my brother in Tron Uprising, the artist Philip Moy, he says that they John Cartered Tron Uprising.
John Carter.
Because that's what they did with Disney did with the John Carter movie. Is it was a good movie, but they didn't market it right, and it died, and it didn't make it. It wasn't successful. And they did the same thing here. Didn't market this properly, and it died.
Well, again, there's another show that I was completely unaware of. Now, was this in the 90s?
Actually, this is from 2012.
Okay, so it's not that old.
No. And again, this is another one. They have not yet put it on DVD. If they ever put it on DVD, I will be buying it. I would have to own that.
Disney is kind of weird about that, you know. It's kind of like, so it may just show up. When
this is of course my favorite character. My favorite character in the entire show. Her name is Paige, played by Emanuela Chiriqui, and her voice is beautiful. She's basically like she's on the bad guy's side, but she's not truly evil. You know, she's like one of those where like just a little push, and she could turn and become like one of the rebels rather than being on the Empire side. She's like one of those characters, and I just loved her character. I loved her interaction with the bad guys. I loved her interaction with Beck, and I was always hoping for a scene of Mara versus Paige in the series, but it never happened. You know, the chick fight. That would have been awesome, but no, was not meant to be.
Well, they only had one season, you know, and they probably figured they'd get to it in season 2, and then they found out there was no season 2.
Well, I don't even think they cared about a season 2. Oh, another one. David Arquette was also on the series as well. He also did a voice for a character for a couple episodes. Yes. Wow. So I mean, again, like I said, it's an all-star cast of voices and smart writing, excellent, you know, animation. You can see from this frame here, it's beautifully done, and yet one season and it was gone.
You know, that Disney XD was a really strange thing, because I remember when it came out, and it was like there was like certain shows like this one that you could only get on XD, and it was like, but that was like a pay channel, right? You had to like subscribe.
Well, you had to have cable. You had to have cable to get it.
But you had to have the right cable package to get it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember we didn't have it, and our kids were always like, why can't we watch Disney XD? And I'm like, I'm not paying extra money for Disney XD or to get another package so that was kind of screwed up. You know, it's like why you would, I mean, I assume
40% Zed. This is from the short-lived series on Disney XD called Tron Uprising. It's sort of a show they placed in between the first Tron movie and the second Tron movie. This is when this takes place. And like I said, it's a great series. It was wonderfully done. You know, all-star cast of voices, beautiful animation, smart scripting. I mean, it should have been. It had success written all over it, and just Disney didn't market it right. They put it on one of their more obscure channels, and they just killed it.
Well, I think they must have been thinking that because Disney XD was a newer thing, that hey, we'll do this and put it on Disney XD. It'll bring more people over to Disney XD, and instead it limited. The eyeballs actually got on it and killed the series. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Could be.
Unfortunate. That's you always wonder how the people in power in movies and TV ever got there, because most of them seem to be idiots.
Nepotism or blackmail is my
or sleeping your way to the top. One of those.
Either sleeping your way to the top, you're somebody's family member, or you've got some pictures that they don't want out, and that's.
Yep. There you go.
What I think you would enjoy, because Alien Nation, it's got the whole sci-fi thing, and our two main characters here, you see right here on the front, Eric Pierpont and Gary Graham. Both of them are Star Trek alumni.
I recognize the guy on the right. The alien guy, I don't, but
that's Eric Pierpont. He was in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I didn't watch Star Trek: The Next Generation.
He was also in the final season of Star Trek Enterprise.
Okay, well,
Gary Graham, the other guy, he did an episode of Star Trek Voyager, and he also did worked on most of the seasons of Star Trek Enterprise. He was a Vulcan.
Yes. Now I recognize him. Yeah, that's where I know him from. Now this was a movie too, with James Caan and Mandy Patinkin as the alien.
And again, probably based off of the movie, because the movie was somewhat successful. They said, "Hey, let's do an Alien Nation TV series in 1989," and it lasted one season.
It didn't really work out.
But again, you had great actors. You had Michelle Scarabella was on the show, and Lawrence Hilton Jacobs was on the show. I mean, you had lots of great character veteran actor Ron Frasler as the police captain was on the show. I mean, lots of great actors, people people you've seen in tons of stuff.
You mean the great Ron Frasler, right?
That's right, the great Ron Frasler, the underappreciated genius.
Okay. Peyton Holden, I'm keeping track of this stuff. So keep your head low tomorrow. That's all I can warn you right now.
But yeah, I mean, this was a great series. I love the interaction between Pierpont and Graham with their characters, because they kind of start out a little tense because Graham doesn't want one of the aliens as a partner, but then he kind of comes to respect him and like him and see him as a friend. And then even later in the series, Graham had a neighbor that was one of the aliens, and he started to have a bit of a romance with her. And so, I mean, I really like the tone of the series. It was just really well done. Again, just, I'm not sure. Now, I've never seen the film. I've never watched the movie, but this series, I really enjoyed it. And again, of course, since I enjoyed it, they had to kill it off very quickly.
Of course. Well, that's always the risk, right, of getting hooked on a television show, is they're going to cancel it before you get any sort of satisfactory wrap up,
Well, I'll give you this. They did do wrap up for this because there was a couple of movie specials, like 2-hour movie specials after the series was canceled. I guess to try to wrap everything up, they did a couple of those to fill it all in. But I just missed the series. Like this is a great sequence right here. This is there they are right there, our titular heroes. My favorite episode is one where now, if you know anything about the series, salt water works on these aliens like acid. So if you had a water gun, you sprayed them with the water gun with salt water in it, it would burn them like acid. And there was this one scene where the quote unquote overlords of the aliens that that they supposedly escaped from used to play a game with them, a Russian roulette game, where they had this machine set up, and it had 2 tanks, one with water and one with salt, and it would dump in and mix. And then they had 6 hoses on it, and it would spin around as 2 guys were like this facing each other, and it would spin around, and when it stopped, it would fire, and you'd either get a blast of air or you'd get the salt water. And it was a game of Russian roulette, and the people would bet on who's going to survive. Yeah. And in the end of the episode, Francisco, Eric Pierpont's character, finds out the guy who was the one running that on his ship, the ship that he was on. And he locks him in, and he sits there with him, and they play the game while it's spinning around. And it's like he's giving the guy a taste of his own medicine. And in the very last turn, number 5 hits Eric, and it's air, so we all know the next one's the salt water. And it spins around, and it stops. Click, and it's pointed right at the guy, and then he gets blasted, but it's just salt that hits him. And then you look over and they show you cut the camera down, and you see the tank with the water. He had disconnected, so it leaked straight to the floor. It never got mixed together. See, he just scared the hell out of him with it. That's what he did. I thought that was awesome. A great episode of true justice.
Now, was the premise of this show these aliens conquered the Earth, but they're sort of benevolent, right?
No, they're escapees from they were conquered by another force, which of course turned out to be in line with a sect of their own people, and they were like slaves, and some of them took a ship and ran, and they came to Earth, and now they're stuck on Earth because they have no way to get back to their home planet or anything, because that's all taken over by the other overlords. And so now they have to make they're like pilgrims, coming to a new land. We got to make a new way for ourselves. And of course you got all the stereotypical, racist stuff, because you're an alien, and they have names for them and stuff. And the Tanktonese is the name of the aliens. And but there was little bits in there that was funny. Like I remember one episode, Gary Graham was watching television with his female neighbor alien, and they were just trying to decide what to watch. And he's like, well, you know what? I want to watch the Three Stooges. And she's like, oh, I don't like that. It's too violent. He goes, and besides, do you know what nuck, nuck, nuck means in Tanktonese? And it's just, I just laugh at that every time. It's like the whole culture thing is like, oh, nuck, nuck, nuck. For us, it's just him laughing. But for them, it means something, not so nice. It's just hilarious to think about that. So that whole class of cultures type thing was going on in the series. Like I said, it was really well done. I liked it a lot. It was a lot of fun, but didn't last.
Nothing lasts forever, especially these TV shows. All right, now this one I do remember.
Yes, Street Hawk.
Yes,
I mean, with the great Rex Valve. Rex Smith. That's it, Rex Smith.
Yes, the great. Wasn't he a recording artist too? Didn't he have some pop hits? I think he recorded some tunes too.
I don't know if he did or not. But like I said, again, another one I love. Again, this is like 1985. So you had you had the Dukes of Hazzard was just ending. You had Knight Rider was still on the air. You had the A-Team still on the air. So you had Blue Thunder, the helicopter one was out at the same time. So I said, hey, that's a good idea. Let's take a cop and put him on a super motor. We got the super car, we got the super helicopter, we got the A-Team van. Hey, let's put a guy in a souped up motorcycle. And that was the whole premise for the show.
Rex Smith also played Daredevil in the that TV pilot that never got picked up. But so Christopher Lloyd the great Christopher Lloyd was in this as well. It says so right there on the screen.
Yeah, I guess he was in an episode or two, I think, but he didn't do much. Another one who was on there. Here's George Clooney was in an episode.
No kidding.
From 1980. Yeah, so this is 85. This is before ER and all that stuff that made him famous.
Right. Wow.
So, but yeah, I remember the intro and the whole bit with the bike. The bike can go 300 miles an hour, and the guy, that voice of that narrator killed me every time. He goes, at the end of every time he does the intro, he goes, "The man, the machine, Street Hawk," and it's just like, oh, dude, that voice makes anything sound cool.
Man, machine, Street Hawk. Oh,
it's hilarious, and of course the great Joe Regalbuto was also on the show from Murphy Brown fame. This was years before Murphy Brown, so he was
the great.
Yeah,
Joe.
He was the tech guy, who was helping. While Jesse Mock is out there on the bike and stuff, he's on the radio with him. He's doing all the tech stuff and the computer stuff for him.
Yes.
Yeah, but a bike can go 300 miles per hour. It's like, wouldn't that be kind of hard to hold on?
I would think. Yeah, I think that with the G's would knock you right off that thing. But
the suit. I mean, you have like wind tears from just the friction.
You would think, but maybe it's a special suit. So probably. There he is. There he is in action.
There it is. Right. I mean, that's right there. That's the whole show. That's what you're waiting for. You're waiting for the ramping and the machine guns and the smoke screen and all the tech on the bike. That's what you watch for. You watch for any other reason.
Yep.
But again,
high speed action.
It was high speed action, and it was a lot of fun. I loved it. Again, one season and it was gone. All gone.
Yeah, there was kind of a trend there.
I think for this one, it might have been more market saturation.
Yeah, there was a lot of this type of material out at that time, like Knight Rider and things like that.
Like this, I mean, you had like I said, I named several. You had the Dukes of Hazzard, you had Knight Rider, you had the A-Team, you had Hunter, you had all these kind of like police action drama type stuff like this. Now, granted, like I said, their angle was a motorcycle, but that just wasn't enough. I think it was just market saturation. Too many of the same type of programming. People were just like, yeah, I'll watch Knight Rider or I'll watch Hunter instead of watching this.
Right. Yeah.
And that they're the ones that got the fame. And poor Jesse Mock.
So I
love too that the name of it Jesse Mock, like mock, like a rate of speed. I just love that. It's hilarious.
Now, was this one that you watched as a kid religiously, like every episode?
I watched it. Yeah, totally. Every week, I was right there to watch Street Hawk.
Okay. Now this one,
I watched them all in the 80s, Aaron. All those shows I named, I watched all of them.
Now this one, I find a hard time believing you watched, but I think you're going to tell me you did. So there it is.
Yes, I did.
Automan. Oh, God. And is that Desi Arnaz Jr.?
Yes, it is.
Oh my God!
He's our titular star. He's our,
the great Desi Arnaz Jr.
Yes, the great Desi Arnaz Jr. No, but minus of course Chuck Wagner, who is Automan, the title character. Aside from him, our star is Desi Arnaz Jr. This is a vehicle he wanted to be a part of.
Oh, gosh.
Again, for people who don't know the premise of Automan, Desi Arnaz Jr. is a cop, but he's kind of like works the cyber division. He's a computer geek type of guy, and this is in like the early 80s. This is like 1983, so it's like before computers were the in thing. So like the other cops kind of see him as like, he's just some little tech punk guy. He's not a real cop. So to try to change that, he devises a program to create the world's most perfect man to help him fight crime, and that's how he ends up creating Automan.
So he's like a computer-generated being.
He's a computer-generated being, yes.
Okay.
And wow. It's him and his his sidekick Cursor. You see that it's right underneath the A little shining star. That's Cursor, like the cursor on your computer. Cursor comes to life and then becomes whatever Automan needs: the car, a helicopter, a guitar, whatever Automan needs. Cursor becomes.
I'm telling you, I'm seeing why this show only made it one season.
But it was still a lot of fun, and again, you had lots of great actors who did like guest appearances on the show. You had the great Patrick McNee, John Steed himself was on that episode. You have Richard Lynch. You have John Vernon, Dean Wormer. Come on.
Oh, okay, all right, I'll give you that.
You got all these great, also another Laura Branigan, who some of you may know from music for the song Gloria.
Yeah. Yes, she made a. How about that? I didn't know that.
She was on an episode. Just tons of like great actors who did guest appearances on the show, and yet again, only one season. It wasn't enough to save it.
I don't know. It looks pretty lame to me, James. I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, but again, this is also early in the days of the high tech. Like, look at the way his body looks.
Yeah,
That was like cutting edge technology in 1983.
Right. This is like we're just starting to talk about home computers.
Computer at home. I don't need it. Yeah, you could do it today, but back in 1983, this was like, oh my God, this is like futuristic.
Yeah, it's Commodore 64s, man. That's what we had in 1983.
That's right. And our Atari 2600, if we were lucky.
Oh, now see, look, I don't believe this. Geek Avengers on your side, James. It was cool, Aaron. I don't think it was. I don't think it was.
It was okay. Maybe not cool, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, I'll give you that.
And again, just the type of TV, they just don't make it anymore. They don't make shows like this.
This dude would have been cooler if his head was all like machined up like his body instead of like a regular face.
Well, they had to have him look good because then that's, he's got to be the world's most perfect man. So, of course, he's got to look really good.
Okay, all right. If you say so. I'm just saying I thought it'd been cooler if he'd been more like the Vision instead of
Well, I think that would be a little too far. But Chuck Wagner, he's also a guy who's done a lot of work. Let's see. Well, he didn't do a whole lot of work, but like his stuff was more in the line of soap opera stuff. All My Children, General Hospital, One Life to Live. He was on an episode of Dynasty. He was on an episode of Matlock.
I thought you said his name was Chuck Wagon at first, and I was like,
Chuck Wagner.
You got to be kidding me. Chuck Wagner. Okay, good old Chuck Wagner.
Although I will say that this is probably his biggest claim to fame is Automan. Of all the stuff he's done in his career, that's probably his biggest claim to fame.
Yeah, well, it's better than nothing, right? I mean, you can do the convention circuit with that, I think.
Yeah, you could, but those are mine. I grew up with most of that stuff. And just like I said, as long as I live, the 80s will never die. And there's the proof right there.
Old Man says, I think Automan used very few computer-generated effects. Most were practical effects. Computers were just not that powerful. It is true.
That's true. That's right. Like I said, that's why I said the way they did his body in there was, at the time, cutting edge. It was nobody could do that kind of stuff. And, that might be another reason it didn't last. Maybe it was just expense. Doing some of those computer effects back then were very, very expensive.
Oh yeah.
So to have a whole show where one of your main characters has a body that requires constant computer CGIing would be quite expensive.
Well, the first on-screen, I believe, computer-generated effects were in Star Trek II when they showed the Genesis effect. So. That's what I'm led to believe anyway.
And that's 81, right?
It was 81, right?
Like
so there's no way they could have afforded to do something on a television series.
Well, like I said, nothing major. Like I said, all the rest of it, like you said, were practical effects. But his body, the way he did his body, had to be computer. And like I said, that might have been another reason it didn't last long. It was just so expensive to produce it for that effect.
Could be.
Because it's like he was some minor character you only saw for like 2 minutes every episode or something. You could do it easily. He was one of the main characters, so that's going to be running into a lot of expense if it's computer generated.
Mm-hmm. Well, James, that's quite a list. Very 80s centric for sure. Well, I'm going to take a decade early, and we're going to be very 70s centric with me because this is the stuff I remember when I was a kid. Now, my first one is one that I loved as a kid and I hate as an adult, and I will explain why. Most people still view this show with rose-colored glasses, but the reality is this show sucked. And as a kid, it was awesome. But I started watching it just a few years ago when I was on the treadmill, right? I was like, I got to do something other than just stand here for 30 minutes. So I started watching Kolchak episodes. And what I found out was this was an hour-long show. And of course, the premise being this reporter who has always ended up hunting down monsters or supernatural stories or beings, right? So it's a great premise, right? But they spent about 45 minutes every show with him doing dumb things and spent about 5 to 15 minutes on the monsters. And it's like, the only reason I'm watching the show is to see him fight the monsters. And that was hardly any of the episode. And the problem beyond that was the stuff with him, the personal stuff, was horrible. So you're sitting there for 45 minutes being tortured with poorly written character stuff. And then finally at the end, you get the showdown with the monster, which may or may not be good. So
I'm with the crowd that still likes the show. I've seen it recently. I like it. You know, not every episode is great. There are some clunks.
You're high. You're high, James.
No.
You know, you're wasted. You're smoking pot and then watching the episodes.
Nope. They're all natural.
I'll tell you this: the pilot with the vampires in Las Vegas. I remembered it being really, really cool, and I watched it, and it was like, I thought it was below average. But the werewolf on the cruise ship may be the worst television episode I've ever seen of any program in my life.
That's one of the ones I didn't care for. That's one of the ones I would put in my clunkers, is the one with the werewolf.
But here's even
though it had Nina Talbot from Hogan's Heroes on there.
Yes, and here's my problem with that episode, and to me it sort of encapsulated the whole show. The problem with almost every episode. We spent all this time with Kolchak, hunting down clues or whatever. This woman, the one that you just said, the great Nina, what was her last name?
Talbot.
Yeah, Nina Talbot, the great Nina Talbot, is on this show, and she's like sort of trying to hook up with him because there's kind of like this middle-aged, swinger cruise ship.
Yeah.
And he was trying to avoid her like the plague, but she ends up becoming a valuable resource for him for information and helping him to solve this thing. So you spend all this time with these two together, and Kolchak's not interested in her, but he is kind of using her for help, right? And so he disposes of the werewolf, and the last scene of the show is him at the cruise ship is docked. He's standing there by himself. Taxi drives up.
Going over the last bit of stuff that he's reading in his recorder.
Right. And then he gets in the car and drives off. And we never see Nina. And it's like, you guys just spent 45 minutes of the show developing this oddball relationship between these two, and there's zero payoff. They just totally forgot she even existed for the ending. They could have had her walk by and he could have said something, or they could have been standing there together and he says, oh, I really enjoyed our time together, but I'm just a lone wolf or whatever. And he gets in the cab. They didn't even do that. It could have taken him an extra 30 seconds. And they just totally forgot about her. So I'm sorry.
Well, one of the ones I really liked on there was one with Tom Skerritt. The one with where he's basically has made a deal with the devil, and he can transform himself into a dog and stuff. And there's a great scene towards the end when Kolchak confronts him, and he's talking to Kolchak, saying like, I know all about you. You got the wishes of a very small man. You do hard work, but you never see the payoff. You don't care. You say you don't care about. Your dream is to get the Pulitzer Prize, even though you say you hate. The accolades that are empty accolades are placed upon those in your profession. You want the respect of your peers, even though you say you don't care. And he's like just spelling you out all about Kolchak. I love that. That was a great episode. That one. So like I said, there are some clunkers in there, like the werewolf one, but that one was really good.
Yeah, but see, the key to what you just said was at the very end, there was a confrontation between the two that I really liked. We had to wait 45 minutes to get to the good stuff every freaking episode. That's what drove me nuts. There was a great episode with the zombie. I don't know if they were like, these zombies were in this like junkyard. And there was this zombie who was like, he was sleeping in the back of like an old station wagon, right? Yep. And Kolchak had to go in there and pour salt in his mouth and sew his mouth shut. Now, I didn't know that killed the zombie, but And so he's crawling in there, laying next to the guy. He's trying to sew his mouth shut, and he wakes up, and it's a great, like, terrifying last 10 minutes of the episode. It's the 50 minutes up to that last 10 minutes that are horrible. So anyway, that's
well, the thing is if you aren't hooked on the character and you aren't hooked on the process of like what's going to happen to get to that point, if you aren't hooked into that, yeah, I can see how that could be extreme. But see, me, I like the character. I think Darren McGavin was awesome in that role, of like a hard-nosed reporter that just doesn't get the respect due him for what he does. And I like some of that interaction between him and Vincenzo.
Yes. Yes, that was good banter, but I don't think the character stuff was all that well written. It wasn't all that engaging. That's where I got bored. If it had been better character stuff.
In the clunker episodes, the ones I consider clunkers, that's where that happened. Like they didn't have the writing didn't work, and they didn't have the interactions that would work. Like, I think, again, Kolchak was on a boat in that one, so he's not near Vincenzo. There's like one scene where he's on a phone with him, and that doesn't really work that well. But when he's in his office with him and they're going at it together, they have really good chemistry. And like I said, that kind of, and then of course, whoever the cop of the week is on there, whoever's the police captain that week, all the interaction between them. See, I enjoyed that stuff. So for me, it wasn't like torture sitting through the 45 minutes to get to the last 15 with the monster. I didn't have a problem with most of them.
Well, let's face it. This show did get canceled after one season, and there's a reason for that. But Geek Food Tavern, who is Dave Olbrich, former publisher of Malibu Comics, says Kolchak's show was awful. Kolchak, the character, was amazing, and the original movie was one of the highest-rated movies made for TV. I believe that. That was the vampire episode in Vegas. So, look at this. Peyton's just earning strikes. James greater than Aaron. Wow. There's going to be pain and suffering tomorrow.
Oh, man, he even doubles down on it. Aaron, how does it feel to always be wrong?
Dave Olbrich also lets us know the same producer as Dark Shadows and the same budget. Dan Curtis, how about that?
Oh, here you go. Account 964.
See, look at that. See, I knew you guys would not appreciate my take on this because everybody in comic land loves this show. And I'm telling you, you need to take off the rose-colored glasses. But it's a great premise.
Makes a good point. Account 964 makes a good point.
Where is he? Oh, okay. It was an instant. Yes. But X-Files is a great show. A fabulous show.
Here's an interesting thing for you, though, Aaron. Did you know they tried to remake this show in the early aughts?
Did they?
There was a show called Night Stalker that they didn't have Kolchak. It was called Night Stalker, and it had a guy who was a reporter called Carl Kolchak, but it was played by Stuart Townsend, I think is the actor's name. And
how was it?
Partner Gabrielle Union was his partner. This Kolchak had a partner in the office, and they were and basically they were like, he was like the true believer, and she was the skeptic.
Right.
And
so it was kind of X-Files.
Yeah, it had a very much an X-Files feel to it because his wife supposedly had been like killed by aliens, he thought, and there was like all this like conspiracy theory stuff in the stories and all this, and trying to find out what really happened that night with his wife on that lonely desert road and all this stuff that, where people thought he had killed her but he didn't, and all this other stuff that was going on in the show. And so it was like they kind of tried to spice it out. They kind of said, let's take Kolchak the original, take the trappings of it and the name, and then we'll put on an X-Files type themes to it, and maybe that'll make it work. And it didn't last. It lasted less than this. It lasted 7 episodes, which did not air in correct order, and there was only 10 episodes made, so 3 never aired. I know this because I own it on DVDs because I wanted to see all 10 episodes in chronological order. And if you see them that way, it's not that bad. But they didn't air them in the correct order, and the one they ended on was a cliffhanger. It was part 1 of a 2-part episode. That's where they ended the series on the syndication. It's like, yeah, let's cut it off right here, leave it at a cliffhanger without knowing what happened.
Well, I knew I'd piss the chat off with that, but let's move on to my second choice and see if I can unruffle some feathers. This one I actually kind of liked, even though it was pretty dumb as well. See, at least I have at least I can step back from my childhood loves and recognize whether they were dumb or not. Battlestar Galactica, the original series, right? I was so excited when this came out because, of course, it was a ripoff of Star Wars in a sense. Of course it was. And we were like, oh, now we get to see Star Wars every week. And I loved this when I was a kid. I've met, both Dirk Benedict and Richard Hatch at cons over the years. And, I thought this show was great, at least initially. He had the great Lauren Green as in, what was his name? Andromeda or something like that?
Yep, and the great John Colos.
Adama. Yeah, that was it. And who?
No, John Colos.
Yes.
Yes.
The great. Now,
who has a Star Trek connection, by the way.
Yes. This was interesting because I thought this lasted longer than it did, but it only lasted one season because Lucas sued him out of business. I mean, they later did it.
I'll say it was that. I've heard stories on this from Glenn A. Larson himself, and he said it was that plus the fact that it was so expensive.
Yes.
To produce the show that would have been bad enough, but then when they got sued on top of it, they were just like, yeah, we're just not going to bother anymore, and they just gave up on it. If it would have been one or the other, they might have fought for it and said, no, we'll do a second season, but they got both of them, and it's like, yeah, with the expense and then getting sued, forget it, we're done. And then they did bring it back 2 years later with Galactica 1980, which was completely horrible. See, now you talk about Kolchak being horrible. No, Galactica 80 was horrible. Where they finally get to Earth but there's nobody from the original in there except for Lauren Green.
Right.
He's the only one that's left from the original. And then Dirk Benedict, who was in the final episode. He came back as Starbuck for one final time in the last episode before they canceled the series.
The dude, one of the partners from Adam 12 was in that.
Yes.
The dark-haired guy.
Not Reed. Jim Reed.
Yeah, Reed, the stoic guy who never smiled.
He was supposed to be boxy, all grown up.
Right, the kid, right. Now, see, I have not gone back and watched any of the episodes as an adult. I only remember them as a kid, so those are my fond memories as Dave Ulbrich is now trashing it as well. So, Dave and I apparently have similar taste in our
or lack thereof.
Paying attention. Let's see. Paying attention between sequential or cleavage reminds me of Homer Simpson staring at Pamela Anderson's chest. My eyes are up here. Pamela Homer looks down. I've made my choice. Oh my gosh. I don't even know what that means, but that was funny anyway. All right. Now here's one that probably
I love though that Dirk Benedict himself actually made a little bit of fun of that. Because again, I've been watching on MeTV the reruns of the A-Team. And there was this one episode where they're in like a theme park for movies and stuff. And a Cylon walks by Dirk Benedict and he's like, and he's going to say something and he doesn't. It's like, oh man, come on. That is awesome. It's like, I love actors who can make fun of themselves that way.
Yes. In a show like that, you almost have to, right? And I think that's hilarious. They wrote that in there. All right. Now, probably no one's going to remember this, but Burt Reynolds as Dan August. This show only lasted one season, but it was such a cool detective show with Burt Reynolds in it. Are you kidding me?
And Norman Fell?
Yes. Listen to this lineup. Okay, so you had Norman Fell was his partner. Richard Anderson, the great Richard Anderson from $6 Million Man. You might remember he was Steve Austin's boss. He was in this. Now, listen to this list of guest stars that went through this show in the first and only season. Harrison Ford, Billy D. Williams, John Ritter, Mickey Rooney. Of course, Mickey Rooney was in every show. Ricardo Montalban, Carolyn Jones from the Munsters fame, Lee Merriweather, Catwoman, Martin Sheen appeared in this show, Dabney Coleman, the great Dabney Coleman, and Jan Michael Vincent, who later thrilled us in Airwolf. So you had quite a array of guest stars.
That's huge guest stars. Oh my God, it's like the guest star of the week.
This is like pre Burt Reynolds becoming a major movie star, which is kind of interesting that he would be in a failed television show and then leapfrog to superstardom in movies. But it did happen. And I find it hard to believe that a detective show with Burt Reynolds in 1970, I believe, or 71, would not have hit, but it didn't. But it's considered one of the great.
I do find that interesting, though, that
wonders.
John Ritter was on an episode which of a series that had Norman Fell on it before Three's Company.
Yes, that's the interesting thing, right? You kind of find these kind of like connections that happen, because Three's Company wasn't. That was like
Geek Avenger, Jan Michael Vincent equals Damnation Alley. I own it on DVD, my friend.
There you go. There you go.
It's not that good a movie,
but it sounds good. We only had one television
room. It had a good concept, but it didn't turn out quite so well. Even with with George Papard in it, it couldn't save it.
We only had one television in the living room, so it was always a battle over what TV show we'd watch that afternoon. Man, I remember those days.
I remember those days too.
Oh, Richard Anderson, Forbidden Planet. How about that? A young Richard Anderson. Is this geeky shows only? Or do you truly great comedies like Buffalo Bill make the list? Buffalo Bill was actually a great show. I had forgotten about that, so I'll give Dave Ulbrich some credit for that. But Dan August, that's not a geeky show. That was a crime drama show. Now, I've got another one here that I bet a lot of people don't remember, or maybe have never even heard of, but I loved this show when I was a kid. Bill Bixby as the magician.
No, never heard of it, man.
He was
I love me Bill Bixby. He made the Hulk series for me.
Well, this
more
is
than Ferrigno did.
Yeah, this was prior to the Hulk, and he was like this sort of he was like a secret agent, a James Bond type, but he was a magician, right? And he lived in this jet, right? There's like his apartment kind of thing where he had all of his stuff, so he could like fly to international locations at the whim of the government or whatever his next assignment was. But yeah, so he was this magician, but he was a secret agent. It was a great show. I just loved this show, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, it just didn't catch on. This was actually right after The Courtship of Eddie's Father. So he had done My Favorite Martian, followed by Courtship of Eddie's Father, followed by The Magician, followed by The Hulk. And The Hulk was the one show that really, blew up for him. But
I agree with Geek Avenger. Bixby had talent. Bixby was a great actor. Yeah, and I also remember him from an episode of The Twilight Zone during the 1 hour long episodes. He was on one of those. Yes, with Simon Oakland from Kolchak the Night Stalker. And
the great Simon Oakland.
The great Simon Oakland. Yes, mm-hmm. It was an episode where they're on a ship. They were in the Navy, and they found it's supposedly a ship sunk at the bottom, and they keep hearing sounds coming from it. And so trying to figure out what's going on. Is there somebody alive down there in this boat? What's going on? And so it's one of those. It was an hour-long episode during the hour-long season that they did for Twilight. And he also did an episode of The Night Gallery. So Bixby worked with the great Rod Serling.
Well, okay, now there I agree with that. Rod Serling was the great. So, but no, Bill Bixby was one of the really tremendous TV acting talents. I think of that generation. He was a guy that, he had that kind of screen persona that you liked him. He was a very likable actor. And so it was very easy to get kind of drawn into his television shows.
Yeah, and he had like a good charisma about him.
Yes. David Copperfield meets the cat. There you go. See, Dave is on this stuff. Dave is actually, I think, a year older
or maybe it's more David Copperfield meets Maxwell Smart.
Yeah, well, there was no comedy, though, really. It was
no comedy, but he was a secret agent.
Yes. All right. Now, this is one of my all-time favorite shows. And I thought this was hilarious. And I get why it only lasted one season. But if you did not watch these shows, you were missing something, because this show was hilarious. I mean, I love the cartoon, too. The cartoon was a riot. But this, for a live action, I think they only did like 6 episodes or whatever. My gosh. I remember there was an episode where this robot had been sent from 1976. It was a Russian robot to kill Jimmy Carter. And I can't remember exactly the shtick.
His answer, Maxwell Smart, the Get Smart was 3 seasons.
We couldn't.
That's why it couldn't be on this set, because it had more than 2 seasons, so it had 3.
Get Smart was produced by Mel Brooks. So
yes, the Cone of Silence that never worked right.
Now, can you verify this, James? Was the Bill Bixby Night Gallery also star Donna Douglas from Beverly Hillbillies?
It did. Yes, I believe it did. Because what happened is it's about a statue, and I think Donna Dixon's the one who buys it for the yard. And in the end, somehow something happens, something devilish, something satanic, evil, and in the end, Bixby ends up becoming a statue. In the end.
Oh.
It's been a while since I've seen that episode, but I do remember. I do believe, yes, I do believe Donna Douglas was in that episode. Yes.
I'm actually sort of embarrassed that my Twilight Zone knowledge is very weak. I was never a huge Twilight Zone watcher as a kid. I watched more Night Gallery episodes, but again, not since I was a kid, so my memory is very vague on a lot of that stuff.
Well, I'll tell you this. When I was very little, and my parents would sometimes watch the reruns of the Night Gallery. That intro music gave me nightmares. That music was so scary.
Yeah, it was. It was tremendous, though. I loved it. It was like you knew you were going to be scared, but somehow you just had to watch it, And now this, I don't even know.
Actually, Richie Dupe, I don't know that could be constipation. I don't know.
Yeah, with the tick, you never know.
Constipation.
Does anybody know if this is like available on DVD? Because this is something I should get. Or is it available for download? Because I think it was only like 6 episodes or something. It wasn't that many, but I love this show. It was so funny. But there you go. And only a comic book person would be aware of the fact that even what this was when it came out.
Yes. I'll tell you, I never watched it, but I did know about it. Yes.
Well, James, I recommend this for a few guffaws. You should check it out. Okay, now this last show, this is my favorite all-time one-hit wonder show. You want to talk even more than The Tick? This show was freaking hilarious, and it was Police Squad with Leslie Nielsen. And I
think we've all seen those.
This show, I mean, it's funny that I think there was only 6 episodes of this before they canceled it. And yet it spawned, like 3 films or something, right?
Yep. The Naked Gun movies.
But there was no laugh track on the show. So I don't think they understood when they were supposed to laugh, because it was so absurd all the time, but it was so clever and it was so funny. Oh my gosh, I love this show.
The great Leslie Nielsen.
You can say that. The great Leslie Nielsen, a guy that was a dramatic actor for most of his career, but then turned to comedy later in his career and was outstanding comedic actor. I mean, he was tremendous. Of course, we remember him from Airplane.
He had probably some of the best comedic timing of anybody I've ever seen in comedy.
Yep. It was tremendous. Now, do you know, you're a horror fan, right?
Oh, yeah.
He was in the first segment in the Creepshow movie.
Yes, he was.
He was the rich, kind of snobbish guy that was got his comeuppance there in the very first one. Ted Danson was in that sequence as well. I can't remember who the girl was, but
he was also in Forbidden Planet.
Yes, he was the young, kind of dashing Leslie Nielsen, which I like that movie quite a bit.
Very serious role that was too. He was very serious in it all the time.
Yes. And that's the funny thing. That's why he was so funny that he would turn out to be such a great comedic actor and a guy who did nothing but straight drama most of his career.
No, Geek View, you didn't miss it. That's just an image we used for the cover photo here for the thumbnail. We couldn't get into all our favorites, so I want to try to get a few more on that way. So yes, Bristol Conner Jr. is definitely another one I would say is a favorite. Again, I own it on DVD. Bruce Campbell is the man.
I never watched that show. I was aware of it, but I never watched it. So I'm guessing you guys are telling me I should be go back and watch Briscoe County
with a nice touch of comedy in it, but not overbearing comedy. It's not
really.
It's not like Police Squad type humor. It's a little more subtle than that, but it's still very well done. A good action Western. And this is coming from someone who is not a Western fan. My father force-fed me a diet of Westerns when I was growing up, and I never really liked Westerns, probably for that reason.
Do you think Peyton's like trying to, sort of smooth things out between us, or do you think that's kind of a left-handed compliment right there?
I think he's trying to go for the record of getting the most cannonballs in an episode.
He's gonna get his skull crushed tomorrow. I can guarantee you that.
He's going for the record. He's trying to get like a dozen cannonballs, like more than anyone has ever gotten.
He's gonna get crushed tomorrow. That is a promise. Yeah, look at that. Leslie Nielsen was all over the place. I mean, he was doing stuff. He was in a lot of stuff.
Well, of course, my favorite of all his stuff is Airplane.
Yes,
that's
his deadpan delivery in that was so good, so good.
Yeah, again, that's where he used his very serious style, but use it to great comedic effect.
Yes,
he would use it inappropriately. That's awesome. That's what made him great.
Well, the great thing about Police Squad, I remember they would always, at the end of every episode, they'd crack a joke and then they would pretend to freeze frame, right? Where the credits would roll, but they were just like they were posing. And like there was one episode, they had a monkey in there and the monkey was just running around between people where they're all going. And the monkey's just going nuts. And it just.
Because the monkey didn't get the memo. He didn't get the memo. No, you're supposed to freeze.
Yeah, it was so funny. And someone would be pouring coffee and the coffee would be pouring out. Oh, it was good stuff. Good stuff. The Prisoner actually does count. And that's one I thought about. But again, it was a show that I had not really watched much, so I didn't put it on my list, but I am aware of it. And a lot of people love that show, but it was a 1-season show. So just verifying that. I want to say that was a 60s show. It was a British show.
Tavern tells you will love Briscoe.
All right, I'll check it out. I will. Once I get through my Wild Wild West kick, I've been viewing those.
You're never going to get over the kick of him punching the woman. What are you talking about?
I love it, man. They only used that in the first season intro, then they got rid of it
because you get to live out your little secret fantasy of doing that to Shelley sometimes.
What did you say? Bam. No,
how dare you take over my show? I'm the star.
All right, Geek Avenger keeps throwing out Green Hornet, Green Hornet, Green Hornet. So I'm giving you your screen time, Geek. We recognize 2 seasons of Green Hornet on, I believe it was Spike. He was saying Spike TV had it along with Blade, which I never watched it. So again, maybe I'm not the TV guy I should be.
It's not as good as the movies are. But for a television series, it was pretty good. And like I said, it made pretty faithful like to the characters, like the character of Blade and stuff. So I mean, it worked for what they were trying to do. Like I said, I think it's just because they were trying to play off the movies and it just didn't work because I think the heat was off by the time the movies were over. So you should have done it during the movies. Maybe it would have done better, but I think they waited too long and then they did it after all the movies had concluded and then people were done with Blade. It's like, good call, guys. Put it up after everyone's done with it. Awesome.
Green Hornet. Well,
you guys should work in the comic book industry. Yeah, let's put out a new book about something nobody cares about anymore.
No, the Green Hornet. Well, the original one had Bruce Lee, of course. And do you remember they had did they have just 1 or 2 crossover episodes with Batman? Where Green in the original series, the 1960s series, they had the Green Hornet crossed over with Batman at least once, maybe twice.
I'm not sure there was a second one. I do know there was the one for sure. I do know that, yes.
The good old days, man. We were watching them in reruns in the 70s, of course, because I was like 2 years old when it came out in 1966. But we did catch that stuff.
You're old enough to have saw it when it was new.
I barely vaguely remember some original Star Trek episodes because I was like 4, because my mom watched that show religiously, so I was watching it, and I do remember a couple in the very, when they were on Friday nights, NBC, Star Trek. So, but not many. Most of that stuff I caught in reruns as well. I'm in trouble and my last comment gets pulled out of context. Yeah, I know. For a second, I thought he was referring to me punching Shelley, but he meant the girl in the opening deserved to get punched, not Shelley. So we want to clarify that. Shelley will be pissed when I tell her that, Dave, that you're advocating violence against her. That girl deserved to get punched. Wow. All right.
Well, she did. She tried to stab him in the back.
Right. Well, that girl did, but Shelley, I thought he was talking about Shelley there. So, oh, now, okay, we'll throw out one more here. Harry O with David Jansen. I do remember that show as well. And Mannix, although Mannix lasted like 4 or 5 seasons, so that couldn't be counted. But Harry O with David Jansen, I remember that. There was a lot of detective shows, in the 70s, or private detective shows.
Just a lot of police drama type stuff of all kinds in the 70s.
Yep, that's true.
That was like its heyday, was the 70s.
Yep. Rockford Files and, stuff like that all the time, except for Dan August, which just didn't click for some reason. Although he wasn't a private detective, so maybe that's why. When you're a real cop, you can't be as irreverent.
Or maybe it was just ahead of its time. They put it out too soon.
That could be.
They held off and put out in 1973. It could have been a hit.
That's true. You could be right about that. Now, Buck Rogers was a good show or fun show, but it lasted several seasons, as I recall, didn't it?
2.
Really?
The first season, and then they had a hiatus for a season, and then it came back for a second. It only lasted 12 episodes.
Really? Because I remember Aaron Gray
The first season is 24 episodes with him on Earth and the Defense Directorate and Dr. Hewer and all them. Then after the 24 episodes, they broke out. They stopped filming for a year. And then the next year, they came back and they started filming again. This is when he's on the ship Searcher. And everyone from the original series is gone except for Wilma, who's on the ship with him. And that lasted 12 episodes, and then they killed it.
Really? I thought it lasted longer than that. Now, Erin Gray was absolutely beautiful. I loved her. But who was that villain? There was a villain in there that was super hot, too.
Pamela Hensley.
Yes.
Ardala.
The great Pamela Hensley.
Yes.
Woo!
Yes. All of us, we all thank Pamela Hensley for helping 3 generations of boys through puberty. Thank you very much for showing off that belly.
And I got to spend a lot of time with Erin Gray at conventions in the early 90s, and what a sweetheart she was. Super nice lady. See, they're saying only the first Buck Rogers season is worth watching. So
I'd say there's only 2 episodes in the second season that are worth it, and one's a 2-parter. It's the first one where you meet Hawk. That was a pretty good one because they had the old ships in them. The Starfighters were in that. That was a good one. And then there's one right towards the end when they find an old video cassette that survived the Earth Holocaust. And it points that Buck Rogers is one of the people who were responsible for the Holocaust that befell Earth. And so he's like a traitor to the world. And that one was kind of interesting until the very end when they kind of wiggle his way out of it, of being the traitor. I thought that was kind of a weak way to end it. But up until then, though, all the stuff it was pretty good. So there are 2 in there that are all right. But yeah, it's pretty much that second season was pretty much trash.
Well, there you have it. James is the expert, except on, of course, Kolchak, the Night Stalker. But other than that, we'll take his opinion on stuff. All right, so we're moving along out of our TV segment of this show to our original art that you're going to share with us this week.
Yes,
you have three.
In keeping with our theme, this was the theme of shows that ended too soon. My art is from a book that I thought ended too soon, should have lasted longer.
Okay.
It has a connection to Aaron in a way. This is from the original series, Damage, from the 1990s.
Oh, there you go. That's kind of a roundabout looping connection, but as I drew the newer Damage a few years back.
You did basically the remake
of
Damage. But this is the original, and when I got this page, I loved it because it's, here you got Green Lantern Kyle Rayner. He's got the most powerful weapon in the universe on his finger. You got Damage, who is the direct relative, like bloodline from the original Adam, not the Adam that shrinks, the Golden Age Adam, the one atomic powered.
Right.
So you got 2 young guys who are like 2 of the young, most powerful heroes on the planet, and yet in this sequence, that's not what they are. They're just 2 young guys lamenting lost loves. And I just love Bill Merriman's work. It's got a very smooth and slick feel. I mean, look at those images in the bottom 3 panels. Look at how soaking that rain is he has on. The heavens are weeping for them for their lost loves. And it's a great character moment. It's the kind of stuff they don't do in the books anymore. I really loved it. If you want to, I think you can show the colored version. I sent that along.
No, I want to know what's going on here with this overlay.
Well, because when Damage is talking in the top panel, we're talking about the girl that got killed, and she was done on an overlay because I think it's a color hold that they used.
Okay.
They made a different color, and that's what the overlay is for. So you have her in that spot where he's talking about her.
So you have this original art.
Oh yes.
And so that it comes with you got the overlay and everything, right?
The overlay was already on it. Yep, already taped on. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, let's take a look at the color version and see how this all came out in the wash. Oh, I see what they did. There we go.
And there
they could have done a better job of that color hold. It's kind of hard to.
Well, I think they should use a different color, perhaps.
Yes, rather than white.
They should have used a different color. But again, look at those bottom panels. Look at that soaking rain on them. Look, I mean, they're like, you'd think they would be drowning. It's raining so hard. But I mean, it's just, the whole thing. That middle panel there with Kyle, and he's going in about his girlfriend Alex, who got killed. And then, and then Damage hits him up with like, you really loved her, didn't you? And he's like, yeah. He goes, but that's kind of thing. This girl, I don't know. I mean, I liked her. Maybe I even could have loved her, but now I'm never going to even get the chance to find out. I mean, just two. And again, these are like two of the most powerful young heroes at the time in the mid '90s, and yet they're not super powerful beings in this. They're just two young guys who are commiserating in their sorrow, their shared sorrow. And it's like that's just a great sequence. And it's like, they don't do stuff like this in the books anymore. They don't know how to do this anymore.
Well, I hate to rain on your parade, pardon the pun, but that first panel looks like Green Lantern's peeing green out on the gravestone, which is a bit disrespectful considering the moment that they're sharing.
Just to give you the heads up on this, Aaron. The problem with this is in the series Damage, because of what his powers can do, he is banned from the state of Georgia, his home state. They ban him. You're banned. You're not allowed to set foot on the ground in anywhere in Georgia. But because the girl died, he wanted to be there for the funeral. And so we had Green Lantern make a little hover platform for him, and that's what's underneath Damage's feet. So that way he's not touching the ground. Therefore, he's not on Georgia's soil.
Got it.
So all right. A little loophole around the law.
Well, that is a cool page from your collection, and I think that's very nice. Thank you for sharing. And I do have to Peyton Holden, of course, just piling on. Aaron is damaged, confirmed. So I don't forget that stuff. I'm like an elephant. All right, let me show you what I got. Mine does not tie in at all to our theme because apparently I don't have quite the original collection that you do. But I do have this cool piece by, once again, the late, great Paul Ryan. Wait a minute here. Let me go full screen. And this is a nice page from the FF of the Thing fighting some gorilla thing. That's
from issue 360, I believe.
There it is, 360, page 11. Look at that, you geek. So that's Paul Ryan, inked by Danny Bellondi, or is it Bulanati or something like that? Bulanati. See, to Aaron and Shelley. I don't know why he put Shelley's name on there, but he did, just out of kindness, probably.
Aaron, you've said this yourself. When people see you at shows, the first thing they ask you is, what's Shelley really like? See? So
yes, that's right. Hey, where's Shelley? You're married to Shelley, aren't you? Where's Shelley at? So yeah, everybody loves Shelley, of course.
And now at shows, because of the show you guys do, you'll be saying, hey, where's Shelley Showtime? That's what you're going to hear from now on.
I know. I've created a monster. But this was the first time I met Paul in the Seattle show, and I believe I showed last week or the week before the Iron Man Fing Fang Foom page, and he said I could take a couple of pages, and I found this one because it had a great shot of the Thing down there at the bottom, right, that big close up, and
I actually don't care much for the story in that issue because the whole thing is they're fighting this. You can see it's on the ape, and it goes onto the Thing. This sticky, gooey alien substance or whatever it is.
Spider-Man's black costume.
Yeah, well, yeah, it reminded me too much of Venom, and it's like, nah, that doesn't work for me. We already have Venom. We don't need a secondary one.
Now this is interesting because this is when the Thing was wearing pants instead of just shorts. So I think I actually kind of like that look, give the guy some pants. So, but like I said, I love that last panel there. And that's the main reason that I snagged this one out of Paul's portfolio. And a very gracious of him.
Random task nails it. Love it when an inker is not afraid to lay down some black.
Yes. Look at this. This is what he was charging for it. Might be worth a little bit more than that now. Just a smidge, perhaps.
Yeah, just half of a thousand, probably, just at least, like $500, $600. That's all.
Right.
Just a little more.
Exactly.
A bit more.
All right. Oops, there's my bald head showing the light. All right, James. That's our artwork. That's our TV shows. You must have a con story for me. You must.
I do. And again, I keep it themed, or at least I try to, with our opening topic. And this one is special because it's going to involve this.
Oh, a Cylon, perhaps.
I own the original Battlestar Galactica on DVD, the complete series with the embossed Cylon face.
Wow.
But the reason I have this here is for this little booklet that comes with it.
Oh.
Signed by Dirk Benedict when I met him in 2010 at Emerald City Comic Con. I've never been one who's been a big, star seeker, looking for the famous people, stars and movies and television. But when I heard Dirk Benedict was there, I'm like, I got to meet the face man. I grew up watching this guy. I have to meet him. And I remember I was in line for him, and he was just like you said, the nicest guy, very gracious person. And everybody who went up and, they got something signed by him. And he would take a few minutes out and he would talk to people. And he was so filled with all these stories of all this crazy stuff that he had been through. And I remember when I got mine signed, I brought it to him just and I go, I just saw you recently in an oldie I just got on DVD called Georgia Peaches. And he got this look on his face like, Georgia Peaches. That's the one. That's the one that I was thinking of the other day. And they had a conversation with somebody and couldn't remember the name of the show. And it was called Georgia Peaches. And he goes, yeah, that's so-and-so. She was a crazy woman. and he talked about this story about how, like, on the set, there was somebody who was dating or seeing some girl in, like, where they were filming at. And she was the daughter of a local mob boss. and it's like, all this craziness. I'm like, oh my God, that's this guy. What haven't you been into? What's this? I love that Dirk Benedict. He was. That's, like I said, it's one of the few times I've seen a actual, like, quote unquote star in my life is Dirk Benedict, and that's just like I couldn't get over how gracious he was, how funny he was. Like, I just is so full of all these stories. It's just it was like one of the best experiences I had with anybody like that. So it's like I'm afraid to, like, go out and try to meet other stars. I'm like, they're not going to top Dirk Benedict. It's only downhill from here.
Well, I was going to tell a different con story, but you reminded me. I do have a Dirk Benedict story, and it does sort of tie in with the show. So I'll go with that one and save the other one for later. But this is actually a two-parter because I got to meet. I just forgot the actor's name. Apollo from Battlestar Galactica. Yes, he. He came to a Portland comic book show, and let's just say, as a side note, he showed up at 10 a.m. a little bit inebriated with a couple of gals under each arm. So we got kind of a kick out of that. But I didn't really have much of a conversation with him, but we were just kind of, oh, hey, and I could smell the morning breakfast, his drink that he drank. So, but I did meet Dirk Benedict. I was at Arizona and at on the Phoenix Cons, the one that was actually in the football stadium. And I was catching a golf cart. They were driving us back and forth from the hotel in golf carts. And I got on the golf cart at the end of the show the last day, and Dirk Benedict happened to be in the golf cart already. So I sat next to him. There's only two of us in the golf cart, right? And, it was just idle chit chat, like, hey, how was the show? And blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, what do you do? Kind of thing. And so then we got off the golf cart, and that was it. And I went in, and I was a little bit early, and I was waiting for a taxi to take me to the airport. So I was sitting there in the lobby in a chair. And there's Dirk Benedict wandering around the lobby, just no one to talk to, nothing to do. So he sees me again. I kind of wave to him, and he comes over and sits down with me, and we start talking for about 20 minutes. And he's, telling me that his son was at the time, I don't know if he still is, was a professional soccer player in Europe, and that he lived in Montana, and was telling me about his home in Montana, and that he lived up on this kind of hillside, and there was a freshwater stream that ran down below his house, and he had hooked up this water system so that he could get water, from this stream, but it was pumping the water uphill basically. And so he was talking about, these freezing winters in Montana, and him having to walk down there, to kind of crank the thing or whatever to get the water up to the house. I mean, it was just this arduous tale of like pioneer life, right? And he's telling me this whole thing, and he got done, and I said, dude, if you're trying to sell me on Montana, you're not doing a very good job. And we had a pretty good laugh about that, and that was it. I went on my merry way, and haven't seen him since, but I did get to spend about 20 minutes talking with him there in the hotel lobby, and he was really, super nice, very gracious,
very personable person.
Yeah, very personable guy, and so that's nice, because a lot of times you run into Erin Gray was the same way when I met her often. In fact, Shelley and I sat next to her once at a Portland show, and her and Shelley talked like the whole freaking show, and because Shelley was in between us, right? And I was like, hey, I'm the artist. I'm the star. I'm the star. And anyway, so Shelley talked to her, and but super nice, and I saw her at many other cons like Motor City and different ones where we shared, rides to the airport and would talk and stuff. And she was just really, really great, and still, super attractive, even as an older lady. She was just, just a gem. So
I preferred her as a blonde, though, on Buck Rogers rather than when she went brunette. Even though it's personally as a man, I've always preferred brunette women. I thought she always looked better as a blonde.
I've just preferred women in general,
and
my whole life.
And she did wonders for white spandex.
Yes, she did. She had a great episode of L.A. Law that she was a guest star on that I remember quite vividly. Her the guy who played her husband, she was a news anchor, and she was getting divorced from her husband. Her husband had this sex tape that they made, and he was so pissed because she was divorcing him that he was gonna release this sex tape and pretty much ruin her career. And that was sort of the episode. And of course, they they finally had a moment where they sat down, and she, talked to him and described how, this would devastate, that was a personal thing that they had, and that they, and he was going to destroy her. Why would he do that? And then he relented and didn't do it. But it was a good episode with her in it. And again, a little bit older, but still stunning. So anyway, that's it, James. We've done it again. We've knitted together another, dare I say, great show.
Well, let's hope this show does as well as the last one did, because I wanted to take a moment here to all you in the chat, and I want to thank you guys, because last month's episode of Comic Art Convo is the third highest viewed video on Aaron's channel.
It's true. Were we talking about B movies?
We were talking about
it was
crossovers.
It was crossover
comics. Yes.
Well, that was a geek fest if there ever was one.
Third highest ever of any, and your second place one, it's only like 8 views away from beating it. So it could actually get ahead of that. So it could become your second most viewed video on your channel.
You got to wonder if it was the surprise appearance by Walter Simonson that pushed it over the top.
That's the only thing I can think myself is we had the guest of Walter Simonson. It's like, well, that's going to bring it in right there.
Yeah. That was a great episode.
Who's in the chat right here, but he's no Walt Simonson.
No. The bro he's cool, but he's no Walter. So,
but I guess now it's time for our shills.
Oh, of course. Please shill away.
So, of course, you go right down there in the description section, guys. We got all our links. It got me to my MeWe page where I post all the stuff about the stuff with the artists I work with coming up here. In fact, I have one coming up on Monday. I'm going to be on the Comic Art Live channel right here on YouTube, run by Bill Cox, who also runs Comic Art Fans.
Yes.
Me and Dan Lawless will be on there doing an interview with Dan and also selling some art of Dan's during it. So it's going to be like an interview art sale live stream this Monday, 9 o'clock Eastern, on Comic Art Live channel right here on YouTube. So you don't want to miss that. And of course, I got down there the art gallery link, so you can check out all the great art that I have available right now. Like I said, around 1,400 pieces up currently, so plenty of stuff to look at. And of course, there's my YouTube channel as well, which I've actually, I don't know how it happened. I broke 150 subscribers. I don't know how that happened.
Wow.
I was floating at Larry and I going 130. And then in the last week, I was going up and down, like 140, 147, 144, 150, 148, 152. It's like, what is this? Is it bots? What's going on? But for some reason, I'm over 150 subscribers now. I don't know how that happened.
You're well on your way to becoming a cult hero.
I might actually become somebody now.
That's right. We'll keep pushing for it, James. We'll keep pushing for it. Well,
of course, Aaron with the Wraith of God.
I'll just say this, that I did send out an update to all the people that have backed the campaign, so everybody knows, or if you read your updates, you know. But I talked to the printer. Can you believe they had a bindery machine breakdown? But anyway, my delivery date on the book is July 5th. They said that's the scheduled delivery date. I am still kind of pushing them, going, yeah, I think maybe you can do it by next week. Can't you? So we'll see how it goes. But that's what they're telling me right now is July 5th. And that means books will be shipping out July 6th because I am not waiting a second. They're going to start getting packaged up and sent out. But what does that mean? That means there's still about 2 weeks left for this campaign. So you can still back if you haven't. And there's a link right there in the description of this video.
Don't be a knucklehead.
That's right. Now. That's what James says, and it's true.
And,
don't be a knucklehead.
I guess for the binding machine, I guess somebody got confused and thought it was a food processing center, so that's why that happened there.
It's very possible in Joe Biden's America. There's a lot of confusion going on right now. Hey, there's Shelly. She's tuning in.
See, again,
late, but there she is.
Her ears were burning. She was.
That's right. She's been the topic of conversation for quite a bit, and now she's just getting in. But yeah. So anyway, I'm working on the next Wraith of God project. While I'm waiting for this to the first one to come in to fulfill, I'm getting ahead on the next one. So the wheels are rolling. And also, you guys, please do me a favor and like and subscribe to this channel, because not only do we have Comic Art Convo once a month, the last Saturday of every month, we have our Sunday show with Shelly, Aaron live every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And then, of course, I do random draw streams throughout the week. So there's lots of good programming here on YouTube. If you can't watch old television shows that got canceled after one season, you should be watching this stuff. So check out James' channel, check out my channel, which apparently you are right now, but keep checking us out. And we appreciate the support, and we appreciate all you guys coming in and hanging with us. And James has one more thing.
And next one, July 30th. That is the next Comic Art Convo, folks. Mark it on your calendars, July 30th.
July 30th. Is that's like, well, there's 31 in July, right? So it's second to last day of July.
Yep.
All righty. We will have something, I'm sure.
Summer.
That's right. Summer. Yeah, it's actually sunny today. We got like 90-degree weekend. I don't know how it is where you're at, but it finally stopped raining for a week.
The last few days have been sunny and warm. It's like summer's finally here. It's like about time.
Yeah, I know. We're only halfway through the summer. It's about time we got some sunshine, right? All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time right here on Comic Art Convo.